The Lofree Flow was a success when it launched last year because it brought a unique typing feel and sound along with an elegant design to low-profile mechanical keyboards. It did not, however, offer 2.4 GHz, very good backlighting, or any customization. It also cost $169, making it the second highest priced low-profile keyboard I reviewed in the last year. Well, Lofree is back with answers to all of those things with the Lofree Flow Lite, a more affordable version of the Flow in 75% and 96% layouts that add 2.4 GHz, a customization app, and better backlighting with a launch price of $89 and $99, and there's also a big discount if you get one through the Kickstarter campaign. Let's take a closer look and see if this is the new top low-profile mechanical keyboard of 2024. Before we dive in, I want to mention that Lofree sent me the Flow Lite for the purpose of reviewing it. I was not paid to make this video, and Lofree has no input on my review. I do have an affiliate link for you in the description if you're interested in picking up the Flow Lite and you'd like to support this channel. Alright, before we get into details here, let's just talk about the Kickstarter details, since that will be kind of a temporary thing. The Flow Lite is launching on Kickstarter on September 19th of 2024, and until the 19th, you can lock in a hefty discount by reserving one for $1. That locks in the super early bird price of $69 for the Flow Lite 84, the 75%, or $79 for the Flow Lite 100, which is actually a 96%. Now, when everything on Kickstarter is over, I don't know if the retail price will be higher than the launch pricing of $89 and $99 US respectively, so of course, just check the links to see what the current pricing is. And if you're watching this video way later and the Kickstarter has ended, I will update the description and the comments under this video with links to the sort of regular retail channel for buying the Flow Lite directly through Lofree's site. Okay, now let's dive into the features and specs of the Flow Lite. We'll do a sound test of the two new Kale switches, and then we'll talk about pros and cons based on my 2 weeks of testing them out, and we'll also bring in the original Lofree Flow to point out some differences. The Lofree Flow Lite is available in an 84-key 75% layout and a 100-key 96% ANSI layout, and both include volume roller. The construction is ABS plastic, and there are 3 color options: off-white, marble, and flamingo. The dimensions of the 84 are 316.8 by 138 millimeters with a maximum height of 23.5 millimeters and a weight of 643 grams. The dimensions of the 100 are 374.5 by 138 millimeters with the same max height and a weight of 775 grams. There are fold-out feet for 1 additional typing position. Connectivity includes Bluetooth for 3 devices, 2.4 GHz with 1000 Hz polling, and USB-C wired also with 1000 Hz polling. Battery capacity of the 84 is 2000 mAh with an expected life of up to 80 hours with the lights off. The capacity of the 100 is 3000 mAh with an expected life of up to 100 hours with the lights off. The Flow Lite is compatible with Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS, and has key commands to swap between Windows and Mac modes. Internals include a hot swappable PCB compatible with Kale low-profile switches, a gasket mount structure, a relatively soft plate material which appears to be polycarbonate or possibly ABS, a switch pad, and custom molded foam in the case bottom. The low-profile stabilizers have a very light amount of lubrication applied. Switch options include 2 new Kale low-profile switches: the Spectre Linear, which is a full palm switch with 40-gram actuation force and 2.8 millimeters of total travel, and the Hades Silent Linear switch, which has the same actuation force and travel. The Kale palm switches from the original Lofree Flow are compatible but can only be purchased separately. The keycaps are shine-through double-shot PBT and ABS blend and color matched to the case color. Backlighting is white only and north-facing and has 2 modes. The Flow Lite can be customized with the Lofree Configurator app, which at the time of launch is a Windows-only app which includes remapping and macro creation. However, Lofree has indicated that a web-based tool with multiple OS support is planned for late 2024 or early 2025. The Flow Lite is launching on Kickstarter with special early pricing, so check the links in the description. The official launch price is $89.99 for the Flow Lite 84 and $99.99 for the Flow Lite 100, which is subject to change after the initial product launch. All right, now let's get into some pros and cons of the Flow Lite, as well as some differences from the original Flow. And of course, we will start with the pros. First up, they have added 2.4 gigahertz with 1000 hertz polling, which was not present on the original. The connection was stable for me, and there is a storage spot under the keyboard for the receiver, which is nice. Another pro here is they've added customization with the Configurator app. At the time of recording this, it is available for Windows only and is an app that you download. However, Lofree has told me that later this year, by the end of 2024, there will be a web-based app that works on multiple operating systems. Now, while the current app is what I would call fairly basic, it does include macro creation, which is great, and it worked fine for me. There are not multiple blank layers to customize like you often have with QMK firmware, but you can create different profiles that have different configurations. Unfortunately, there's no way that I could find to save multiple profiles on the keyboard itself and then swap between them with key commands, so it's not really a big pro relative to the market, but it is a step in the right direction. Next up, we have better backlighting and shine-through keycaps. The keycaps are double shot and they're both PBT and PC materials. They still feel good just like the originals do. There's no excessive light bleed outside of the legends, and the backlighting, it is a white only backlight, but it's effective in low light. The original did not come with shine through legends, but you could see the backlight through the white keycaps, which honestly, in my opinion, just didn't look great. So this is a nice adjustment here. All right, now let's talk about typing feel. This is of course subjective, and I normally would include this in the neutral section rather than the pros, but the pro here is that they've managed to retain sort of all the good things about the typing feel of the original Flow. It is a softer feel than most low-profile keyboards that I've tested, and it's just as satisfying as the original in my opinion. Whether you personally like the typing feel or not is up to your preferences, but there's nothing objectively bad here, and it is a unique typing feel compared to other low-profile keyboards on the market. And going along with typing feel is the typing sound. With the regular linear switches, it's just slightly different than the original Flow, which you hopefully could tell in the sound test there, but it is very similar, likely because of the different case material is why we're getting a little difference. The sound is still unique and very pleasant in my opinion. The new silent switch is very quiet, as you would expect, but the typing feel doesn't suffer. Sometimes silent switches can have a mushy feel, but these are still pleasant to type on while significantly reducing the sound. And I don't really think they feel too light. I was a little worried that reducing that weight would make them feel too light for me, but they actually feel pretty good still. So I'm counting it as a pro that they retained all the positive aspects about the original switches, and now they just have two new options. And by the way, you can use the original switches in the Flow Lite if you want to, if you already have them or you want to buy those because you like slightly heavier switches, or if you want tactile switches, you can get those separately and swap them out. All right, now we have a few kind of smaller pros here. First, we now have adjustable feet, which the original did not. And that's, of course, nice to have more than one typing angle. Next, there are 3 color options instead of just 2 with the original. I have 2 of them here. I have the off-white and the flamingo pink, and then there is the kind of muted gray color option as well. And lastly, you might maybe be able to use the Lite 84 on top of your laptop. You definitely couldn't do this with the original. I tried, and the feet always were pressing on some keys on my MacBook and my Windows laptop. With the Flow Lite, it's still not designed to sit on top of a laptop based on the positioning of the feet, but I did try and use it. I actually used it multiple times on my MacBook Pro, and it actually worked without pressing any keys. However, I can't promise that it will work on all laptops. Some just won't work with these type of feet. All right, now let's move into the neutral category where we talk about things that are either very subjective or kind of have a wash between pros and cons. Maybe some people will, dislike, maybe some people will like. Let's start this category with the design. And as we consider design, let me swap out the Flow Lite 100 here for the original Lofree Flow. Now, I could have counted design as a pro, honestly, because I like it, but it's so subjective that it's really all about your personal taste and what you're looking for. In my opinion, the design is still elegant, even though it is all plastic. It still looks like a quality keyboard, so they succeeded there. And it mostly feels like a quality keyboard, but we'll talk a little bit more about construction later. My only minor complaint design-wise is that the name is sort of engraved in the top left corner here. It's not obnoxious or anything, it's not super noticeable, but I just prefer to have no branding on the front, the top of my keyboards at all. And it was a little less conspicuous on the original because it was on the side, so you don't really see it when you're looking down at it. But overall, you of course are gonna notice that you have a metal case here with the original, and that brings a little bit of that more premium feel to it. So there is gonna be that difference. And of course, design-wise, there is the volume and mute roller here, which will we'll talk about in a second. But otherwise, design-wise, they retained a lot of sort of the principles of the original, and I think overall, it still looks very nice for an all-plastic keyboard. All right, the next thing in the neutral category is the battery life. It's not bad. It's not disappointing, but it's also not best in class. The capacity is the same as the original with 2,000 milliamp hour on the 84 and 3,000 milliamp hour on the 100. I was not disappointed by the battery life while testing these for the last couple of weeks, but it is less than some competitors for sure. For example, the Lofree Air 75 V2, which you can get for $129, has double the battery capacity and up to 220 hours with the lights off. Next up, let's get back to this volume roller. There's nothing wrong with it, but I honestly didn't really miss having a knob or roller on the original Flow, so I'm kind of indifferent about it. If you wanted that feature on the original, then it would be a pro for you. It does feel nice, and just like several other keyboards that have a knob or roller, you can't customize it. You can't even select it in the app currently, so it's always going to be just a volume roller and a mute button. All right, now let's talk about the cons for the Flow Lite. The first con is about the plastic construction. It kind of has a soft feel to it. For the typing feel, I kind of like the way that this construction feels, but at the same time, when it comes to durability, if you're traveling with it a lot, that's where I'm kind of not so sure. Basically, the Flow Lite is just a lot easier to bend in your hands compared to several other keyboards that I have tested, including ones that are all plastic. One other thing that I'm counting in the cons, but this is a smaller deal, won't matter as much to everybody, and it actually won't affect everybody equally. It has to do with what surface you put it on and the feet. For some reason, the material of the feet here don't seem to be as grippy to me as the feet on the original Flow. They don't feel significantly different. I guess this one does feel a little bit more grippy in the hand. The interesting thing here is that you would think that having the aluminum case, the original Flow would be significantly heavier than the Flow Lite 84 at least, and that's not actually the case. But even so, I found the Flow Lite, both of them actually sliding around on my desk mat a lot easier than the original Flow. And I use a felt desk mat, which can be a little bit of a slippery surface for plastic, but again, if you don't use a desk mat, they are plenty grippy on a hard surface. So I just wanted to mention it in case you use a felt desk mat. All right, now I have two cons about the switches, even though I said in the pros that overall they are a pro. But the con here is that as of the launch date, there is no tactile switch option. So you can't just get tactile switches in them if you like tactile switches. You can, of course, swap them out for the Kale Palm tactiles that are available, but you can't just get them in the keyboard. So that is a little bit of a con if you like tactile switches. And the second con is just like the original Kale Palm switches, they still use the same pin positions, which is good in terms of hot swapping between all of those options now. However, I just don't really love the whole proprietary pin position thing for any kind of switches. It limits the variety that you have to choose from. All right, before offering my overall opinion here, I want to also mention some of the accessories that you'll be able to purchase with the Flow Lite. Of course, you have two switch options. You'll be able to order a set of the switches in addition to the keyboard, but Lofree also gave me some info about keycaps. I don't have photos or renders, but they listed out 5 different keycap sets with a launch price of $39 for sets for the 84 and $45 for sets for the 100. So it sounds like you'll have the option to add some different keycaps when you purchase as well. Okay, now for the difficult questions. Is this the best low-profile keyboard of 2024, and is it worth the price, or should you just go for the more expensive original Flow if you like the typing sound and feel? Well, these are difficult questions because so much of this is really subjective and down to personal taste. But let's start with hopefully the easier question first. If you liked the idea, the concept of the original Flow for the typing feel and the sound, but the price is a little bit high for you, then the Flow Lite is definitely worth a look as long as you're okay with the plastic build. You definitely are getting more features for the money than the original because of the extra wireless connection and the ability to customize. As far as comparison to the competition though, as I mentioned, the main competitors in the low profile mechanical market are the Keychron K3 Max and the Lofree Air 75 V2, and they both have larger cousins to compete with the Flow Lite 100. Both of them are a little more expensive than the launch price of the Flow Lite, but we also don't know what the permanent MSRP is going to be just yet. Now, I will be doing a much more in-depth comparison video between the Flow Lite and those keyboards, but for now, I'm not quite ready to say that the Flow Lite is the best low-profile mechanical keyboard out there in 2024 or in general. However, I can comfortably say that it is going to be towards the top of the list. There's really nothing here that is a huge downside or deal breaker in my opinion, and it still brings that nice, unique typing feel and sound at a more affordable price than the original. So it is creeping closer to being one of the top options on the market in terms of a low-profile mechanical keyboard, as long as none of those cons really were big downsides for you personally. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the Flow Lite. Let me know if you're picking one up for yourself, and when you get it, let me know how you're liking it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech & Gear channel, and while you're here, why don't you check out one of these videos? I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.